It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube as well at the Team 980, where, Anthony, I realized I barely remember to start the stream. Didn't get any of the graphics ready. I take one day off for Christmas in the middle of the week, and I forgot how to do my job. So that's what kind of show we're having today.
Hey, look, Craig, I don't blame you, man.
Do you remember what buttons you're supposed to hit over there?
I don't remember how to talk.
Okay.
I just don't.
You know what? I might have a solution, though.
What is it?
I think, sometimes when you're struggling, sometimes when things are hard, you have to call in the big guns, and you have to call in the most professional of the professionals. You got to call in a big dog, if you will. So, I think at 5 o'clock today, we should dial up Mike Tirico.
I like that, Craig. I like the way you think, sir.
And so at 5 o'clock today, ahead of him calling Sunday Night Football, we're going to talk to Mike Tirico. Tirico on the show at 5. Our guy Dan Pizzuta is going to join us at 4:30. Never read the comments, which is actually what I was doing. I was actually working before the show. The 4 o'clock snuck up on me. But to the YouTube stream now has the correct date in the graphic, which is lovely. But yeah, we're gonna talk to Tirico. We'll have Pizzuta at 4:30. Dave Johnson this hour as well at 4:45 ahead of Wizards and Hornets tonight. Last time these two teams played, the Wizards got their third win of the season. Could they get number 4 tonight? And then never read the comments. We also hear from Cliff Kingsbury and Joe Witt Jr. later on in the program as the coordinators spoke this afternoon in Ashburn. And we'll get to more Commanders-Falcons thoughts coming up throughout the show as well, beyond just the chat with Tirico. But yesterday, as I look up on the screen here in the studio, Anthony, and see the replay, Netflix's first ever Christmas spectacular, and boy, were the games spectacularly bad. It's not Netflix's fault. How was your buffering situation, by the way? Do you have any buffering during the game?
Just a tad bit, just a little bit. Not much.
I had a little bit as well. That was not a problem, and there was no problems during Beyonce, which was, frankly, the most important part of the day yesterday, considering how the games went, and frankly might have been anyway. Certainly in my household, there was more intent on the Beyonce performance than there was on the actual performances of the 4 football teams involved. But Anthony, the games were not good. My only other Netflix, or I guess I have 2 other Netflix thoughts. One is on the studio coverage, and then the other is on just a very Netflix-specific thing, that if this somehow gets back to the folks at Netflix, just a thought. So Netflix is an on-demand platform, right? The most things you watch on Netflix are not live, and thus, if you ever pause your Netflix or tune out of Netflix in the middle of an episode, one really great feature of Netflix is you go back, you click on the episode of Great British Bake Off or Bridgerton or documentary you're watching, movie, whatever it is that you're watching, and it picks right back up where you left off, which is ideal because it's on demand. Well, yesterday, I'm flipping back and forth at times between Netflix for the football and my YouTube TV, where I have live everything else, and thus ESPN is there and ABC is there where I'm watching the basketball. And I would go back into the football, and it would pick up where I left off. And I'm like, I don't want to pick up where I left off. I want to pick up live. And I guess it's a nice idea feature-wise, but there's not like a good, you have to scroll in Netflix. There's not like a live button. So I would say Netflix. Amazon Prime does this because they're a platform that does a lot of on-demand, but also has been doing a lot more live events. You need a way to either resume where you left off or pick up live. You need a direct cut, and frankly, for live events, you should either have a menu that makes you pick as soon as you're going in. That's what Prime does, and I think that's fine. You can either play from beginning, play from last point, or pick up live, or you just pick up live by default because it's a live event. That would be my big, like, platform-wise, that was my only, like, significant, and it's not even that big of a deal, but my only Netflix-related complaint.
I mean, I was watching it on my phone, and they had the actual live button because I couldn't, like, consistently just sit on my phone. But yeah, when I went back to watch Netflix, I did have to resume like where I previously left off. But I was able to hit the button. I didn't get to.
Well,
sit
it's like
down on my
watch
couch.
live, but then when
Yeah.
you get into it, if you exit out, it took you back to where you left off.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, like, if you watch like the NFL Thursday night stuff on Amazon Prime, when you click on the game, it's like watch this game, right? And it has like a little sub menu that's like, would you like to watch live? Would you like to watch where you left off, or would you like to watch from the beginning? And they even have like the catch up with key plays feature as well, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I would like to see that incorporated into Netflix's gigantic budget. That's my only like, hey, this game was a little weird because it was on Netflix, platform-related complaint. My only other complaint is really more of an NFL media complaint. So they have this studio show with Kay Adams, Manti Te'o, and Robert Griffin III. And at halftime of the Houston game, after the Beyonce show, they go to that studio show. And it's like, all right, hey, you got a little bit of time. Let's give some analysis. Like, what do you got in the second half? And Mina is like brilliant. Just drops, CJ Stroud's missed a lot of stuff. Like, yes, this is very difficult. The offensive line isn't good, but he's missing a bunch of stuff in the flats. Like, he's got to hit the easy ones. He's got to hit the layups, or they don't have a chance of doing anything. And so it's like really good football sound analysis, right? Then Robert, who's wearing a cowboy hat because of Beyonce and Cowboy Carter, which, fine, if you want to do wacky bits, the football should be fun. I have no real problem with that. But, like, you then toss from Mina, who's one of the best analysts in the game, but someone who is self-taught, just like, so am I, so is plenty of other people that talk about football for a living, right? Self-taught, studies or face-off, whatever, to a guy that should be able to add even more context to that. Like, he played quarterback in the league. And Robert's analysis is, man, if they can't stop that run game, DeMeco Ryans might have to put on a uniform in the second half. I don't ever want to hear about former players being better analysts again. Not that they can't be. Logan's a better analyst than I could ever dream of being, right? Logan studies his face-off now so that he's still current on what's going on. He provides very in-depth stuff, and there's plenty of guys that do that. Ryan Clark on ESPN, Orlovsky's fantastic. There's guys on other networks that, like, put in the work. Greg Olson, who worked that second game with Noah yesterday, like, Greg Olson's amazing. And it's because those guys take the experience they have and the knowledge they have to continue to study and put in the work and all that kind of stuff. And then there's guys who just are like, I used to play, I know a lot about football, but I'm going to say stupid stuff on television. And I'm not trying to pick on Robert specifically here because I think a lot of these television shows on a lot of these networks are very, very generic and very, very like fan on the couch could have given you as good analysis. But to literally go, it has never been more stark of a contrast than sitting on that Netflix set when Mina Kimes drops, bang, here's what they need to do to fix their offense. Stroud, the flats, has numbers, has context, has everything, and does it all in a nice, tidy 45 seconds, if that. Maybe it was 30. And they go to the former player, which in this case happens to be Robert, and Robert drops man, that former coach who used to play linebacker might need to play linebacker. Thanks for your contribution, man. It is I guarantee you Robert got paid more for yesterday than both of us make in a year, Anthony. And I hate that. I hate that especially for us. But I hate that is the state of our very stupid business.
I'm about to say, yeah, I hate that for us, if that is actually true. Did you like his haircut, though?
I didn't see it. All I saw was the cowboy hat.
Oh, okay. I think
I must have missed it. There are other
Game,
segments.
he had it off.
I'm sure he did at some point. I'm not remembering. What was up with Robert's haircut?
Nothing. It was just different. It was something new.
Oh.
Yeah.
It wasn't so bad that it caught my eye outside of the cowboy hat.
Now, it wasn't trending either, but I was just curious.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have no thoughts on Robert's haircuts. I have thoughts on his analysis. My thought on his analysis is I wish it was better. Because here's the thing. When he was at ESPN, Robert was actually pretty good for like a decent amount of stuff. He also said a bunch of weird stuff, which is why I think he's no longer at ESPN. But like when he decided to just like be a good football analyst, like he would add stuff. And you're like, oh, that was insightful. But he's not that plague of generic nonsense that somehow is deemed as smart because it's a former player is like the bane of my existence. And I've never viscerally felt the contrast more than in that moment yesterday when Netflix picks, like, they had 24 people on camera throughout the day yesterday. And I'm like, wow, that's what we get, huh? That's what we get. NBA had some actual good games yesterday, so that was nice. LeBron had some thoughts on that. When we get back, though, let's start taking a look at the Falcons and the Commanders. And, you know, I was listening to the Athletic Football Show earlier today, and Robert Mays, who's a guy that I talk about a lot because I listen to that show all the time, and Robert's a friend, and he's been on the show here. He was talking about how he thinks the NFL might owe, or like NFL media, people who have crushed the Falcons for the Michael Penix decision, might owe the Falcons an apology. I'm someone who crushed the Falcons for the Michael Penix decision, how they've handled this. So I want to flush that out a little bit more next, and then Dan Pizzuta will join us at 4:30. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, and we're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We're streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. By the way, back to the Odyssey app. If you are listening to us there or any of our shows here at the Team 980 or over at 106.7 The Fan or even our network, the Infinity Sports Network, you can leave us a voice at any time. Just hit the leave us a voicemail button, or if you're on some of the pages, it's a little bit smaller of an icon. It's just like a little microphone guy. You can hit that, leave us a voicemail, and you might just hear us respond to it here on the show, if you leave it for our show, that is. But any of our shows have that capability. So if you're in the Odyssey app, check out that brand new feature that was just launched earlier this month. Earlier today, I was listening to my friend Robert Mays and his show, The Athletic Football Show. Very, very good podcast. Talks all things NFL. And I really like Robert because I think he approaches the job with the humility that I think more people in our business need to. That at times, it's okay to admit like we might have been wrong on some stuff. So in that vein, I would like to re-examine one of my strongest takes of the year, which is that the Atlanta Falcons committed an unforgivable sin in signing Kirk Cousins and then drafting Michael Penix. And I'm willing to have this conversation because Robert, who's someone I respect a lot, on his show basically was like, I think that there's a lot of NFL people that are going to wind up owing the Falcons an apology, and I've been open to this since the summer, but seeing how Penix looked compared to Cousins in his first start, Penix, of course, last week against the Giants, and before he plays the Commanders this week, and that maybe what they did was actually smart in a way instead of unforgivably stupid in the way that so many people have described it. And as someone who has described it that way, I was like, all right, let me at least listen to the argument. So to recap, my argument was always that doing either of these things was fine. Signing Cousins, if you want to spend that money and chase Kirk Cousins and say, we hope that he can regain the form he had pre-Achilles tear last year, where he was having arguably the best season of his career in Minnesota, with our talent here in Atlanta, could push us over the edge towards being a real contender. Like, we think we have enough with Drake London and Bijan Robinson, and they were hoping that Kirk would unlock Kyle Pitts. Turns out there may not be a lot in the Kyle Pitts vault, but they didn't know that at the time. And then, some additions on defense. We just hired Raheem Morris, a defensive head coach, that we can make this run. And I think that is a perfectly fine plan. And then a month and a half later, as a surprise to Cousins, they draft Michael Penix with the 8th overall pick. And had they not signed Kirk Cousins, I would have been perfectly fine with that. Hey, we have all this talent. We think that we can continue to supplement other parts, / we'll be able to retain all this talent because we have the rookie quarterback contract. Specifically, Michael Penix, if you like him, part of the reason you like him is because he's older and more experienced. He played a ton in Indiana and then at UW, and we think he can start right away. So let's get rolling and maximize his rookie quarterback contract and keep adding pieces. And we think that within a couple of years, get Michael Penix some experience and some seasoning, let these other guys continue to grow, add some more pieces with all the money we're saving on the quarterback position, and we can win a Super Bowl. I think that's a fine strategy as well. All for it. To do both is asinine. To do both means that you are trying to split the baby, which the famous biblical story goes that you're not supposed to split the baby. That is the lesson of the splitting of the baby in the wise King Solomon. And so what you're doing is you're wasting the rookie quarterback contract because you're now paying veteran quarterback money to someone else, or you are wasting Kirk Cousins maximizing his ability because you could have drafted, say, Jared Verse, who's having a great rookie season, might be defensive rookie of the year for the LA Rams with your 8th overall pick, and your pass rush has been horrendous for a bunch of years in a row. So, that's the baseline argument. Robert's argument is that you have to get quarterback right, and that so often teams put all their eggs in one basket, it doesn't work, and you just wind up wasting other skill position talent or other whatever. And that quarterback is so important that taking 2 significant swings at it and not guaranteeing that you're going to get it right, but greatly increasing your chances of getting it right is worth it, because ultimately what you'll probably wind up getting is either a Kirk Cousins, or I guess what you would wind up getting is either a Kirk Cousins that is really good with a nice backup behind him who's learning and maybe afterwards takes over. And if you it's 1 year's draft pick, and while that could hurt, like, it only hurts so much. You have a ton of talent on the team, and it is what it is. Or Cousins is not very good, and he winds up getting injured, or that injury that from last year he doesn't recover from as well, and you have insurance. And then you move on from Cousins, and you basically sacrifice a year and a half, so 2 seasons worth of that rookie quarterback contract. But by year 3, you can move Cousins off the books and were fine. Like and that's ultimately what happens, right? Turns out Cousins' Achilles didn't heal well enough in this first year, and maybe, Kirk will wind up being okay next year. Seriously hope so for him, but this might be it for Kirk Cousins. If that ankle is as problematic, and that Achilles, I should say, is as problematic as it's shown this year, then that dude can't play quarterback in the NFL. An absolutely bananas stat that I found in prepping for this week's game against the Commanders is that in the first 15 weeks of the season, the Falcons' rollout percentage with Cousins was 2.3%. So that means they ran some kind of like play-action fake boot with Cousins. Less than 3 out of every 100 snaps. In case you're wondering, there's about 70-ish snaps per game. So we're talking less than 1 per week. Boot action, play action, roll, or just like naked bootleg, roll out, anything. That is an impossibly immobile offense. Last week with Michael Penix, they did it on 20% of his dropbacks. So this is even dropbacks. This isn't even, there's 70 snaps per game. I mean, talk about 30 to 40 dropbacks per game. Cousins had 50 a couple times this year because they just went crazy in those Tampa games. But that is 10 times as often, 2 to 20% in one singular game. And I think on some level, I understand what Robert is saying. I understand the argument for the Falcons that, hey, this was insurance, and there's a reason that people get insurance. Where I think you lose me, though, and why I still think that this is I'm not going to call it indefensible. I'm going to call it a suboptimal decision. And maybe that's where I can go less hard, where I can give the Falcons a little bit of credit. Is it goes from indefensible to suboptimal. Then you should have just never drafted Cousins or signed Cousins in the first place. And I think that there's a part, and if I had Robert on to talk about this, I would say this to him. The part that I think Robert undersold on the Athletic Football Show, on his show, was how damaging this was for Cousins, and thus what does that mean for other veterans who might be looking at the Atlanta Falcons operation. Because Cousins was essentially lied to. He was told, we're not drafting a rookie. And they called him like a couple minutes before while they're on the clock to be like, hey, just heads up, we're about to draft Penix. And this has been widely reported on that Kirk was basically like, you're doing what? And it's one thing to bring in a veteran and say, hey, we need you to support the rookie. Or if you bring in a veteran and you're like, hey, you're going to compete with the rookie. But in the first year of a staff, to lie to a guy that's pretty well respected around the league and who shares an agent with a lot of other top players, I think that is a mistake and that there is some price to pay for that. Is the price as significant as not getting quarterback right? Of course not. And winning tends to absolve you from a lot of sins. So if Penix winds up being good, okay. And I think that's another really astute point that Robert made on his side of the argument, is that I think a lot of people's vitriol towards the Falcons was consumed with the fact that they didn't like Penix as a prospect for whatever reason. So it's not just how could you do this and screw up the contract stuff and kind of go half in on two different strategies. It's how could you do this for Michael Penix? And Penix was definitely not higher than May, Daniels, Williams, or McCarthy for me as a prospect. But I didn't dislike Penix. Had he been in this year's quarterback crop, I think he's probably a top 3 guy because this quarterback crop is apparently not very good. I haven't studied it yet, but all the draft nicks will tell you it's pretty light, especially compared to last year where you have 6 first-rounders. But it's not really about just, are you doing this for Michael Penix, other than the fact, if you do that for J.J. McCarthy, who's a 21-year-old, versus Penix, who was, I believe, 24 when drafted, if not 24 soon after. We're talking about different timelines of development. But outside of that element, it had nothing to do with what I think of Michael Penix as a player. It's how do you treat your players? What is the trust level within your organization? How does this affect the development of your rookie? Because that was my thing a couple weeks ago when they decided to put him in. It's you're doing this with 3 weeks left in your season, and the playoffs on the line, and they got a gift last week, by the way, where now they went from like, the season's over, to the Falcons, I believe, control their own destiny because they because Tampa unexpectedly lost a game to Dallas last week, and now the Falcons are in the driver's seat in the NFC South. And now you're putting that his first 3 games in the NFL are the final 3 games of a season during a playoff stretch. That doesn't seem like the optimal situation to drop a rookie into. And so, like, what are the long-term effects of that for Michael Penix? And so I think that's where I still come down to where something I think I've said all along with this, and not just trying to defend my own position, but the suboptimal nature of it is what really irks me. This is in no way a good process, even if the result could wind up being okay. And there's plenty of examples of this in NFL history. Here's just a random one from my career of covering teams. I was in Dallas still in 2014 when they drafted Travis Frederick, who is going to the Hall of Fame as a center. But he was someone who they probably could have drafted at least 1 round, if not 2 rounds later. And it's just a bad use of your draft capital. But, like I said, at the time when I was doing the draft coverage down there at ESPN Radio in Dallas, I was like, hey, if you're going to make a mistake, at least make it on a player who's great. And so if Travis Frederick goes to the Hall of Fame, and turns out that's how his career played out, I didn't have a huge Travis Frederick scout at the time, but I was like, hey, if this guy winds up being great, then like that minimizes the level of mistake, but it's still a mistake if you could have gotten him plus someone else. And that's the thing that the Falcons will never overcome. And I think that's where you get back to the core question of what are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to win a Super Bowl? Are you just trying to be good? And if you're going to try to win a Super Bowl, you kind of got to go all in. And maybe the Falcons will wind up being okay here. Maybe they wind up winning a Super Bowl with Michael Penix. That'd be one hell of a screw you to anyone who said anything bad. But it is still something to consider that as we watch Penix on Sunday and we look back and study him from the Giants game, like, man, that's good, pretty good. And like, thank God they got him because the Cousins thing bombed out. Kirk's Achilles is clearly not right to play NFL football at this point. That there still was a cost here. You don't get to be right in hindsight because your insurance plan worked out if you didn't have to buy the thing that you needed insurance on in the first place. And that's the point that the Falcons can never go back on, even if this might be the second best option, and that's kind of the question, right? Is the second best option so much worse than the first option that it's not even worth pursuing? Or is it's close enough to the first best option that this is actually a genius plan? And that's where I think reasonable people can disagree. When we get back, Dan Pizzuta from the 33rd team talking Commanders-Falcons with us here on the Team 980. Mike Tirico talking about the game he'll call on Sunday night with us at 5. It's the Hoffman Show here on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. Joining us now, Dan Pizzuta from the 33rd Team joins us for his weekly visit on Thursdays. Dan, what's up, dude? How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing well. What'd you? I'm curious. Real quick before we get into Commanders Falcons, what'd you think of the Netflix games yesterday? Obviously, the games themselves were pretty bad. Anything you took away from watching Christmas football on Netflix that you were like, oh, that's noteworthy?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was presented pretty well in terms of being able to actually stream it, which was nice. I'm not someone who is watching a lot of celebrity boxing type things, but I know people who were trying to do that on Netflix. That did not work too well for them. So the fact it was a pretty seamless watching experience was good. I think they maybe tried a little too hard with some of the things they presented in terms of all the people they tried to force in. But anytime I think you can get Mina Kimes on TV, actually giving information is a win. So I think that worked too.
Yeah, no, I actually talked about that earlier. The halftime, our post Beyonce halftime hit, where Mina's dropping actual knowledge, and then Robert Griffin III was like, "I think D'Amico Ryans might have to put shoulder pads on." I'm like, "Oh God, why do we just more Mina, please?" But as for the games themselves, obviously not only so much to talk about. So I think we just go ahead and skip ahead to this weekend where we have the Commanders and Falcons. And what did you make of Michael Penix's debut against the Giants? And how do you try to extrapolate anything against the Giants at this point in their season to what the Commanders are going to prepare for and see on Sunday?
Yeah, that's I think one of the big takeaways. You kind of have to grade this on a curve, but I think he did fairly well for what you were kind of expecting and hoping the offense would kind of look like. I think one of the big things is this offense has been very good at opening up the middle of the field, but Michael Penix, kind of like Jaden Daniels in college, was not a very big middle of the field thrower, especially his last few years in Washington. Of course, because of the wide receivers they had, it's very similar to, the Jaden Daniels profile. A lot of very easy, there was the slot fades, but there were a lot of go balls down the sideline. But when he threw to the middle of the field, he did that about, 37% of his attempts on Sunday. He was 11 for 11. And this Atlanta offense has been very good at opening those up. There hasn't always been a lot of zip in those passes to get, the yards after the catch. With Kirk Cousins in there, I think there was a little more with Penix. So you kind of open those up. I think they had the first play of the game was a designed bootleg off of play action. I think that was very deliberate to show that that's something they can call now. It ended up being a drop. They still ran a lot of pistols. So I think this is going to be kind of very similar things to what we see from this Washington offense now, except without, the quarterback design run game. But a lot of things structurally opening up the middle of the field, a lot of the play action at a pistol, where you're going to be seeing a lot of that from the Atlanta offense.
So I was talking about this with my podcast colleague, Logan Paulson, this morning, and they ran, as far as I can remember, I don't remember seeing a single snap from under center. They might have ran one or two, but it was mostly pistol. What do you like about pistol, and do you think teams should run it more? But also, what are the drawbacks out of a team operating out of the pistol a ton like Atlanta did last weekend?
Yeah, it's something I actually wrote about this before the season started, because I think it was a trend that we saw a little bit from some teams heading back into the back half of 2023 coming into this season. It is one of those things where you can do a little bit of both. You have the ability to run a lot of the under center run game that you have, but you're also enough that the quarterback is back far enough that you can do a lot of passing concepts from shotgun. So when you have those type of things that you can mix and match together, I don't really see a lot of downside to it, especially when you can run some of the play action. I think one of the downsides is if you have like a Kirk Cousins and he can't really move, so you can't really take the advantage of some of the bootlegs off of play action that you would kind of like to do. That kind of hampered some of what Atlanta was able to do. But when you have a quarterback who can move, can get outside on those bootlegs, you don't really know what the formation isn't really a tell, as it might be for some under center or some shotgun things for a lot of teams. So I think there are, we do see a lot of teams, Washington has leaned into it a lot. The Rams have gotten away from it the past 3 weeks, but their second half half turnaround last year was a lot about pistol. Miami uses a lot of it. It just kind of it gives the best of both worlds. And when you can do it well, you have good play action designs out of it. It kind of keeps everything looking exactly the same. That's what we see some of the best offenses do from, when you want to design and have all of the run and pass concepts be looking the same so the defense can't get a tell.
Yeah, Logan also mentioned that you can run some of like the jet motions and things that are a little harder from under center. You can sift tight ends. There's like things you can do that are more natural to shotgun, but that are beneficial to the run game or to play pass that he really likes from pistol as well. So I thought that was interesting. And Logan's thoughts of if people want them, more of that in Take Command. As far as the Commanders' defense goes, trying to defend Penix and, of course, Bijan Robinson in the run game, what'd you like about how they were able to, or what did you see in their ability to stop the bleeding last week after obviously Saquon just gashed them early, but tremendous performance for the final 2.5 quarters from the Washington defense against the run. What do you see that you like there that you think is translatable to trying to stop Bijan and Tyler Algier this week?
Yeah, I think it was one of those things where I think we kind of saw how important Jalen Hurts is to that run game overall, because once he went out, Washington completely shifted the way they were able to kind of defend a lot of what they were able to do in that run game. They were playing with a stacked box more often, so they were able to get a little more into that second level. They weren't quite as worried about, of course, you have, Kenny Pickett, so you're not really worried about him hitting the second level things over the middle. So I'm going to be interested to see how much that translates because, like I said, with this Atlanta offense, you do have to worry about some of those, the play action and opening up things, especially from the slot over the middle. So the linebackers do have to be, maybe a half second slower because that is available to them. But the fact that they were able to still create some penetration with that offensive line, there wasn't as much hesitation because there was no rushing threat from the quarterback, which obviously there really isn't going to be with Penix either. So I think that aggressive mindset, and I think they were just aggressive in general. I think they played a lot more man coverage than you would have thought too. So I think that might be something that they end up sticking with also because, individually one-on-one, you're not totally worried about these wide receivers for Atlanta. It's a good offense, but I don't think there's one guy. I mean, Drake London is great and I like him a lot, but he's not a guy you're going to be worried about playing man coverage against a lot. So I think when you just have that kind of aggressive mentality, I think that helped them, especially in that second half against Philadelphia.
All right, last thing with Dan Pizzuta here, writer for the 33rd Team on the Hoffman Show. What's your confidence level in this offense, the Commanders' offense, at this point in the season? They've obviously gotten it done a number of different ways. Sometimes it's really efficient and proficient. Other times it's these big explosive plays. But they just put 36, despite 5 turnovers, on what was supposed to be the best defense and ranking-wise was the best defense in the league. So as we head into these final 2 games and then ultimately the playoffs, what's your confidence level in Jaden Daniels, Cliff Kingsbury, and this offense for the final stretch run here?
Yeah, it's pretty high. I think they're doing a lot of fun things. I think I think we talked about every week. Do we see enough from them moving things around and making some changes in some of the offense and presenting it in different ways? I think every week, again, we just continue to see some more and more things like that happening. And when you can hit some of the downfield throws that they had against Philly, against a defense that is their main thing that they're trying to stop is those deep explosive plays. So when you're able to hit that against a defense like Philly, I think that they're still working the middle of the field well when they have the people there to be able to do it. So the fact that they're moving around, then Jaden Daniels is just going to, be able to make plays kind of maybe in times when other quarterbacks wouldn't be able to. The fact that he's still able to scramble, they have some of the design runs that are working, and he can just kind of make any throw from any point now, and he's getting so much more comfortable with that. I think what Washington is doing right now, and especially in the passing game, we knew the run offense was going to be good when everyone's healthy, but the fact that they still have a lot of these change-ups has been great to see, and it definitely boosts my confidence level for them going forward.
All right, for more from Dan, you can check out his work at the 33rd Team. Dan, I guess we'll be the first to wish you a Happy New Year, to borrow from Chris Berman's very old playbook, next week as we talk to you next Thursday. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you. Happy New Year to you as well.
Happy New Year. That is Dan Pizzuta with us here on the Hoffman Show. That is. Let me be the first to wish you a happy new. Yeah.
A Happy New Year.
Yeah, that's the Berman. He always is the first to wish you anything. But next Thursday's New Year's Day, or January 2nd, I should say. So we'll be the first ones to have Dan on in the new year.
Dang, I'm not gonna lie, Craig. Next week, next month,
Yeah,
and next year is coming up.
yeah. No, that's how that works.
So I'll let you know.
Next week is next month, which is next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to know what's next on this show?
Trending.
Well,
Dave
after
Johnson.
That. Yeah, Dave Johnson, the legend, play-by-play voice of the Wizards. He joins us on Wizards Game Days. It is a Wizards Game Day. Dave, after a quick look at what's trending. It is a Wizards game day, and it's one we're looking forward to because the Wizards are facing a team that they have beaten very recently. The last time this happened, they were facing the Atlanta Hawks, and they beat them again for their first and then second win on the year. Unfortunately, we won't talk about what happened in between, but they beat the Hornets the other day, and now tonight Charlotte is in town. Dave Johnson is, of course, there, and he is the play-by-play voice of the Wizards, and he joins us now. Dave, they did it. They beat the Hornets the other night. Which was fantastic for their fourth win of the season. What did they do so well then that they're looking to repeat tonight for win number 5, if I have all my numbers correct?
Well, and by the way, you left out the win over the Denver Nuggets, which was significant. But
yes.
To your point, it's even what they did for the first 3 quarters the other night at Oklahoma City, quite frankly. Defend, rebound, play with pace. And make 3-pointers helps. Now, it doesn't mean you have to go crazy, but often in games, the Wizards have been on the wrong side of either the 3-point line or the foul line, or typically both. And again, you can do the math on that. So it's not, this team has been competing, and it showed. It was a 3-point game in Oklahoma City going into the fourth quarter. Again, we're not talking about moral victories or that type of thing, but is this team competing? Is this team playing the right way? And really for the last 2 or 3 weeks, you're seeing that growth, and that's something we've talked about with Brian Keefe. Now, what's from afar, it doesn't seem to ring true. The growth is the problem is you're playing the Clevelands, the Bostons, the Milwaukee's, Oklahoma City, who is when we left them in after the game the other night, they're 23-5 now in the season, and they're a blueprint obviously for. What we're trying to do here is they're actually still a very young team, and we want to get to that level while we're still a very young team. It's not going to happen this year. It didn't happen for Oklahoma City in a weekend, but that's that's the storyline. So now you go up against a Hornets team the other night that, quite frankly, the Wizards. The only bad thing they did the other night, they were not good on the boards in the first half, but they cleaned that up in the second half, and that led them to the victory. But, listen to what I just said. This is a team that responds to instruction and does correct things. And this is what you want from a young team, and this is what, is going to continue to be a theme throughout. But certainly tonight, if you're a Wizards fan, you have it circled because they proved they could do it once. They got to do it again.
They certainly do. Last time out as well, they give up 41 to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and look, there's no shame in giving up a lot of points to players that score a lot of points very often. But also Bilal missed that game. Is he going to be back tonight? And what do you want to see from him guarding a guy like LaMelo Ball, another ball-dominant point guard who's going to have the ball in his hands a lot, making a lot of decisions, who's going to probably more than anybody else on the floor, one way or the other, decide the impact or the outcome, I should say, of a game?
Well, and Bilal is, and I don't know the answer to the question if he's going to play tonight, and certainly the other night against Oklahoma City. Worth noting that Bilal did not play. Alex Sarr did not play. Obviously, Kyle Kuzma did not play. Kyle will not play again tonight. So it was. I went into that game against Oklahoma City thinking, all right, they're back at home. It was their first home game back in a while. The place was rocking, and to the Wizards' credit, they responded, and they had people in Oklahoma City squirming until they ambushed the Wizards at the start of the fourth quarter. Getting back to your question is, Bilal just continues to show he's been consistent all season on the defensive end. When you have a player like a LaMelo Ball who he'll face tonight, it'll be part him, but it's gonna it can't just be one-on-one with him. It's got to be different looks. It's got to be a team effort. Because he's that good that, if it's just one player on him all night long, he's going to figure it out. So Bilal Coulibaly is you talk to players around the league, and if you listen to the post-game press conferences of other teams, they continue to heap high praise. And, that's what's been so impressive about before he got hurt, or before he missed the last 2 games. It was going to be one of our big pregame storylines but for Oklahoma City, but we knew he was going to miss that game. But what he's doing on the offensive end has been so consistent over the last 5 games that he's played, and that's not easy when your assignment typically is, oh, by the way, use all your mental energy and physical energy guarding the other team's best player.
Yeah, definitely not. Do we have any further updates on? I mean, one, Marvin Bagley goes out the other night. Looks like he's been ruled out for tonight. But Kyle Kuzma, and just how long this rib injury is going to take, because I feel like when it happened, it was kind of one of these, we will see, it should be back pretty soon. But at this point, I know time feels like a flat circle this time of year, Dave, and we always lose track with holidays. And, those of us doing a lot of football stuff, like there's a million games on every day of the week. And it's like, what week are we in? How long has it been? But it does feel like it's been a while for Kyle at this point.
Yeah, I don't know how the timetable. I mean, he's working out, and so I think he's getting closer. But that's just from the fact that he's actually working out. He's still listed as out for tonight, and no doubt it's I'm not a doctor, but you got to use your ribs to breathe and a few other things. So I would imagine that's factoring into when they want to have him back out there, to play. But I've not been given a timetable, and I just know it won't be tonight.
Gotcha. Well, Dave, enjoy being. You get to actually know where you are for once, because you guys got how many is this? 4 in a row at home? You got Charlotte tonight. Yeah. You got New York on Saturday. New York again on Monday. You even have to do prep between those two games. Just update a few stats. No new chart, and then you got the Bulls here on New Year's Day. What a time!
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's why I went out and bought laundry detergent today, because I'm going to clean my clothes finally.
Very nice, very nice. Well, Dave, I hope you had a great holiday. We will talk to you, I guess, on Monday ahead of that Knicks game, and enjoy Hornets and Wizards tonight.
Looking forward to it, and please join us on the call if you can.
Indeed. That is Dave Johnson with us here on the Hoffman Show. Again, they'll have the latest on Bilal. Well, if we get any word, we'll let you know during the What's Trending updates. But obviously, by the time Dave takes the air tonight at 6:45, following us, he'll have the word on Bilal's availability, which would be fun to see him match up against LaMelo, especially on the defensive side of the floor. When we get back, though, it is back to the Commanders and Falcons, and we are going to talk about it with the man who is calling the game for NBC, Mike Tirico. Plus, I'm going to ask him if he just sometimes looks at his life as he's hanging out with Snoop Dogg and doing different celebrity appearances now, big old celebrity Mike Tirico, and goes, what am I doing here? Because I tend to think that I know Mike well enough that there's probably going to be a funny answer to that. So we'll get to the football and more with Tirico next on The Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show, hour number 2 here on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. 5 o'clock, it is time to talk with an expert who is going to be on the scene. It's time for Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
And if it's a big event, Mike Tirico is going to be there, the play-by-play voice of Sunday Night Football on NBC. Kickoff 8:20 on NBC4 this weekend. Mike, how are you, man?
I am great. I hope everybody had an awesome Christmas, awesome first night of Hanukkah, and this is one of those good parts of the year where you get to celebrate with family, and then you turn around and go, guys, I got to get to work, and work's a good game. So let's get ready for this one.
It is, and I've gotten a lot of notes from PR people over the years, Mike. I don't know that I've ever gotten one on a broadcaster, but this one's too good. Your guy Dan sent this over for me. I don't know if you're aware of this, but apparently in 2024, Mike, you have done 180 hours as host or play-by-play voice of some of the biggest events in sports. You had the Paris Olympics, of course, NFL regular season, playoffs, the Kentucky Derby, which was just, the 150th, nice round number. All with average audiences of at least 15 million viewers. So that is the equivalent of 60 nights of prime time or more in a full week of 24/7 round-the-clock airtime of that level of events. Mike, are you tired?
No, but my family is very happy that I've been gone for that much time. It makes a few hours with me somewhat pleasurable. I did not realize those numbers. Dan is a wizard when it comes to that stuff, and I appreciate it. It's been a heck of a year. You kind of start to reflect at the holidays, and our family got to go over to Paris, and a couple of my gifts for Christmas were pictures or things related back to our time at the Olympics, and we're 5 months away from it now. It just reminded me what a special time that was. Those 2.5 weeks that'll stay with me forever. I've said to people publicly and privately, that was the best event I've been a part of in my 37, 38 years of being on TV. It was just awesome, and it's nice to reflect back on some positive memories and a great year, and making more. We'll make some more with 3 last hours of primetime TV on Sunday night there from beautiful Landover.
Yeah, Dan was saying this is probably your last event of what has been an amazing 2024, just because of the way the calendar works. Mike, we're out of time. I'm sure if there was another one, you'd find a way to squeeze it in. Real quick before we get to the game.
New Year's Eve or something. No,
yeah,
we're good.
Yeah. Real quick before we get to the game, I do have kind of one more fun one. Because I've known you, or we're not, for the audience, Mike and I are not best friends by any means, but we've known each other a while at this point, thanks to a shared alma mater. And you are the sports broadcaster's broadcaster, and you've done all of these things great. And then all of a sudden, I'm watching The Voice with my wife, and I look up, and there you are, and you're hanging out with Snoop Dogg. And you've done a lot of really cool stuff and done all these amazing events. And I just wonder for you, knowing you the little bit that I do you ever look up in those moments and go, what the hell am I doing here?
That's exactly what I said, Craig. It was on the set on a Sunday night at the Olympics with Snoop and Martha Stewart.
Yep.
And Martha, we were going over this segment, and we just decided, what the heck? Martha, who knows equestrian very well, a heck of a lot better than I do.
Yes.
Martha was going to do the highlights of the equestrian competition that she and Snoop went to go watch together in Paris earlier that day, all dressed up in the appropriate garb for equestrian. And I'm sitting there going, what has happened to me? I am sitting here now coaching Martha Stewart through highlights and figuring out how Snoop is going to interplay with Martha. What happened? Where did we leave the then Carrier Dome and Syracuse football and lacrosse on a college radio station? How did I go from there to this? But the joy of the journey has been amazing, and there are times that I do pinch myself and I go, what the heck am I doing here? But never take it for granted, and never take for granted how big Syracuse was a part of getting us there, and the lifetime friendships that place has brought along as well. So we're lucky. As I tell young people all the time, I don't know what you want to do, but do something you love. And you understand when players play as long as they can, it's because you love what you do. And so many people can't say that about their jobs. We're lucky that we can.
Amen. Amen. Mike Tirico with us, play-by-play voice of Sunday Night Football. And to the game, Mike, obviously the whole tenor of this game changed a couple of weeks ago as the Falcons changed their quarterback. They just say, look, Kirk, it's time. Clearly, the Achilles is just not where he can play at the level they need. Penix, whatever they saw in practice, is ready to go. How do you think this changes the dynamic of this game? A rookie quarterback in his second start, his first one's against, record-wise, the worst team in the league, and now his second one is against a playoff team under the lights with all of the storylines, all of the things that are going into this.
Yeah, let's go back to Kirk a second, because it's interesting, and because of Washington folks, you know all about it, right? As recently as last month, so November 3rd, Kirk threw for 3 touchdowns and no picks, coming off a game where he threw for 4 touchdowns and no picks. And 2 weeks before, he threw for 4 touchdowns with 1 pick. He was going really well, and then something happened. And what's interesting is, I've asked a couple of times, is it the Achilles? Has he slowed down? He's not mobile. He was never mobile, even there in Washington. That was the incredible part of that 2012 season when you went from RG3, who was running a Baylor offense, and you went to Kirk, and the offense adjusted. What Mike and Kyle and the crew did, the dream team of coaches there was amazing. But you're right. Things change now because now you have a rookie quarterback coming in for his first road start in a spot where they have their hand on the steering wheel. Atlanta controls its opportunity to get into the playoffs. And it's just a little bit different because it's not that veteran quarterback who, can come in and he's been through this 100 times. Well, what they saw in Penix was on the field physical ability and off the field maturity. Guy who, as many folks listening know, went to Indiana and then Washington, where he took the Huskies to the national championship. He had receivers like Jalen Polk and Roma Dunze and Jalen McMillan, who's with Tampa. He was surrounded by good people, had 2 first 2-round picks on the offensive line. This guy can play. He's got an arm. He can make big throws. And from what everybody tells us, he's not afraid to make big throws and use that arm. Maybe we didn't see it all against the Giants, but maybe the Giants was a good toe in the water for him. I think the guy is going to be a good quarterback. Everything we heard last year, everything we've heard so far. So just because they've gone to the number 2, to me, doesn't mean that this game gets any easier. I think it's still going to be a challenge for the Commanders on Sunday night.
Mike Tirico with us here on the Hoffman Show. One of the numbers that when I was doing my prep for this week in this game, Mike, that really stood out was looking back at some of the next gen stats and things from last week. Is Penix only took 2.47 seconds to throw last week, which is a really, really like almost Tua-esque number, which is of course the gold standard in the league. It's almost a fake offense that they run down in Miami. He gets the ball out of his hands so fast. How do you actually think when you and Chris sit down and are exchanging notes on Collinsworth, watching the tape and everything, how good is this Atlanta O-line really, and can you operate like that against a better pass rush and a better defense that Washington has compared to what he faced last week against New York?
Yeah, it'll be certainly more of a challenge. I do think, and we had Atlanta early in the season against Kansas City. That's why that Cousins game is still fresh in my mind. They have a good offensive line. Now, they haven't been tremendous, but good quarterbacks know that, and we've talked about this on the broadcast, Chris has kind of set par for snap to throw at about 2.5 seconds. So if you're getting it out in under 2.5 as a rookie, then you know where the ball's going. That's the whole idea of this. The rare are the plays that you take that deep drop, load up, give the guy time to get downfield, but you do. And when you do that, you protect a little bit more. You chip the edges and you do all that stuff. We've seen traditionally Washington or Dan Quinn defenses get after the quarterback. The ability to do it with multiple guys is important. And the obvious, with what Dante's done this year, what Luvu's done this year, in addition to the mix up front, and there will be pressure, no doubt, on him. So he's going to be all over getting it out early. Is the Atlanta offensive line better than or the defensive line, I should say, for Washington better than the Giants? Absolutely. So it'll be a different challenge. But I don't think that's where the money's going to be made for Washington. Some pressure disguised with a young quarterback. How does he handle those? they're always afraid with a big arm guy is just going to take a shot down the field, right? That's what worries you, that you haven't seen a full bucket of, okay, how does he handle this? How does he handle that? So there's going to be a little bit of discovery as you go through the process on Sunday night, calling the defenses for Washington for Joe Witt.
And then, of course, the other side of that is, can they be the first 7 carries that they had against Saquon Barkley last week, where they gave up 109 yards and 2 touchdowns, or the other side of that coin, where they were in the 41 yards in the final 22 against Barkley, against Bijan Robinson, one of the few backs in the league that can actually match Barkley's explosiveness. Of course, Mike, the reason when this game gets flexed and why this game's so exciting outside of the team stakes is because now y'all get to call a Jaden Daniels game, and he's the headliner. What have you seen from Daniels this year? What really stands out to you when you and Chris have your on camera before the game? I'm guessing he's going to be who you're talking about. What are some of those key points you're starting to think about?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll make Jaden front and center, one of the big star stories of the night. You should be when you're the Heisman winner, you're the number 2 pick, and you've come into the league and had an offensive rookie of the year season, right? That's win-win-win. I go back, Craig, to the notes that we had from our meeting with Dan Quinn before the preseason game that we did, which was the last preseason game, and Jaden didn't play, but just how comfortable they were with him, and how the discovery phase has turned into the reality of his performance. And if there's an overlying characteristic, and Adam Peters deserves Executive of the Year attention too, for a good draft class, incredible free agency acquisitions, getting the quarterback spot right, at least out of the gate. When you look at all the things that they were pointing to, it was the ability to not just lead by throwing the football and performing, but have the personality of a leader, to be able to handle the spotlight, to take all of this in and thrive. And he's done that. And I think you see that in the biggest moments of the season. The comebacks, look, the Chicago play, obviously, we talk about that. We'll be watching that for years. But last week, it's an entire drive. It's not just one big play. It's the poise. It's the calm. It's the way he's handling it. It's the recognition from the vets. I always think when you have a young quarterback, read closely what the vets say. Is it pablum or is it really legit stuff? And there's a lot of anecdotal that you're seeing and hearing from vets about this guy. He's the real deal. And when you get a quarterback like that, it changes everything in your organization. And Jaden Daniels has done that in year 1. It doesn't mean it's going to grow perfectly for 5 or 10 years, but it's got a great chance to. And he's got a great chance to take him to the playoffs. And, it's one of those teams with a defensive coach like Dan Quinn, guys who can come up with turnovers, and a rookie quarterback who is in the playoffs for the first time. You just don't know. This guy so far has been good enough that if you play a 2 seed, maybe Philadelphia again, they'll have their attention truly focused on, we could lose this game at home to a good Washington team. No doubt about that.
No doubt. Mike Tirico with us for another minute or two here on the Hoffman Show. Of course, the play-by-play voice of Sunday Night Football. Commanders, Falcons, 8:20 NBC this weekend. Jaden has also gotten the absolute best out of Terry McLaurin. He's got 12 touchdowns, tied for the single-season Commanders record, second behind Jamar Chase in the league. What did you think of Terry and kind of where he was on the receiver hierarchy coming into the year? And has this year changed anything in terms of your perception of him now that he's getting to play with an elite quarterback finally?
I remember sitting with Terry, let's see, about, maybe a year or 2 ago. I remember talking to him about that whole search for the big-time receiver, or the big-time quarterback, to match his receiving skills. And, now people have to notice because it's 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns, right? It's one of those, career high, franchise record type seasons. But he had always put up the seasons with 1,000 yards. And, other than that rookie year, he had been consistently doing that. So CeeDee Lamb's going to get more attention. So is Jamar Chase, because those guys have had big moments and huge seasons with winning teams or teams that were going to the playoffs. Now Terry will be in that spotlight, and you go back and retrospectively look at his performances. So yes, he will continue to get the attention and even more when you do it in a game like Sunday night, when you do it in the playoffs. I think one of the cool parts of this season to me is that out of nowhere, Olamide Zaccheaus and Jamison Crowder had the biggest catches of the year in Week 16, right? That's depth of a receiver room, but it's also because you can't let Terry score down here. So somebody's got to step up. And Crowder, who dealt with a calf all year, and Zaccheaus, who ironically is a former Atlanta and Philly guy, sees his old team here in back-to-back weeks. That's what I talk about when I say Adam should get some conversation for Executive of the Year. I think it'll probably be Brad Holmes in Detroit, or maybe Kwesi in Minnesota for what they've built this year. But when you look at what this team was, all the acquisitions, the draft, where it's gone, how guys have contributed, it's great. And you had that one really, really special piece in Terry McLaurin, and now he's thriving. So good for everyone involved.
And that's actually where I want to wrap with you, Mike, is just the biggest of pictures here. It's hard to believe we are less than 18 months from when Josh Harris signed on the dotted line to take the team over from Dan Snyder, but we are. As you reflect on that, and as someone who has the vast experience of not only knowing the NFL like you do, but your years of calling the NBA and being in other sporting environments, when you look at the transformation of this team, how do you begin to try to put it into context on and off the field?
Man, it's hard to pivot. It's hard to take a cruise ship and pivot fast. And NFL franchises are that size because of the spend, because of the reach, because of all of it. And it's really hard to take a franchise and turn it around quickly. And it requires multiple really good hires in key spots. And when you look, for the most part, the best franchise have alignment in the four most important chairs: ownership, GM, coach, quarterback. And you've gone from question marks in a lot of those places, and Ron Rivera did not have the people around him and all that. Now you've gone to really solid, really good people in each of the four big chairs, and it's turned this cruise ship around quicker than it should have. And it's great. And then the stadium stuff on the back end of that, the fans wanting to be part of this, all good energy. And in a year where Boston and New York and Chicago, three of the biggest cities in the country, are giving us nothing when it comes to good football, it's great to see Washington be extremely, and throw Dallas in there this year. Washington's extremely relevant, and that's great for the league and great for all of us.
Mike, see you Sunday in Landover. Safe travels.
We'll be there. Thank you so much.
Happy
New Year, all the listeners. All the best to you, Craig.
You as well, Mike. Thanks so much. Happy New Year. That is Mike Tirico with us here on the Hoffman Show. Of course, the play-by-play voice of Sunday Night Football, and that is this weekend, 8:20 p.m. with Chris Collinsworth on NBC and Peacock. When we get back, we'll react to some of what Mike had to say about the big picture of the Commanders as we get our reflective hats on. If your reflective hat sounds like something with, like, I don't know, it sounds like a big orange hat, Anthony, that so people can like see us if we walk through the woods. A reflective what? Glasses, that has a different connotation as well. As we reflect. Anthony, you look very confused.
I'm trying to think of a word, phrase.
I think people get it.
Yeah.
We'll reflect next on the Team 980.
requires multiple really good hires in key spots. And when you look, for the most part, the best franchise have alignment in the four most important chairs: ownership, GM, coach, quarterback. And you've gone from
that to this. Mike Tirico with us just moments ago, the play-by-play voice of the Sunday Night Football package on NBC and Peacock, where, of course, you'll watch the Commanders this weekend, unless you're going to the game, which, by the way, Anthony, potentially bad news for our tailgate plans because there's rain in the forecast, but we can deal with that later on in the show. Right now, though, I want to stick real quickly with what Tirico was just talking about, which is how this Commanders team, because I think it is worth reflecting, not just it's the holiday season and we all get introspective this time of year, but I think it's worth reflecting on just how special it is that what this team has done, what this franchise has done. And obviously, it's rare because teams don't change owners that often, period. So to go from a bad owner to a good owner is rare because teams going owner to owner just doesn't happen very often. So even if we take that one off the table, to get owner, GM, quarterback right, GM, head coach, quarterback right, and for it to stick is so hard in this league. And you can have one but not the other. You can have a good head coach who just the quarterback situation's not good, and then you probably wind up not thinking that guy's a very good head coach. You can get maybe the head coach and quarterback right, but the GM is not very good at putting together the rest of the team. You can get certainly there's been great quarterbacks wasted who have gone through any number of personnel executives and head coaches over the years. And obviously you can have I guess it's kind of hard to have a good GM and then a bad head coach and quarterback, because the number one thing a good GM does is pick the head coach and the quarterback. But to get that all right in the short amount of time that they have, to get it right on the first try, because it'd be for one thing to say like, hey, all right, new owner comes in, hires a GM, messes it up, learns something. Okay, second time, sick. GM maybe messes up the head coach hire or gets the head coach hire right, but they miss on the quarterback, learn something. Now you get him the second time around, bang, bang, let's go. Like, those stories happen in the league. But I think when you see these teams turn around and then sustain it, it really does come when it happens like this, when you get it right the first time. And teams can build and grow together where the GM gets the head coach right, gets the quarterback right, and then is able to build around those two. The head coach has a clear vision for what they want, and they're on the same page, and there's an aligned, to use, this is a Wizards term or a Commanders term. I get my rebuilds mixed up sometimes, Anthony. The aligned vision. I think that's a Commanders term.
I think Commanders is recalibrate.
I mean, they both have multiple sayings. Whatever. The point is they have an aligned vision, right? Like who they want to be as competitors, who they want to be stylistically. They obviously, in getting Cliff, like found the right OC. Joe and Dan have known each other forever, so that's less surprising, but like that has worked out very well. And some of the things that, I was nervous about with not having Dan just be the de facto defensive coordinator and say like, hey, I don't want to lose the greatness of Dan Quinn as a defensive coordinator by letting anyone else do some of that job and be a play caller especially. I think Joe's done a really good job. There's been some points where I think there's probably some calls he'd want to have back. That's part of being a coach in the NFL, but I think that is lessened as the year has gone, and they've been able to get a lot right. And so I think, in a season of gratitude, Anthony, let us all be grateful that the Commanders' present is better than the Commanders' past, because this is so much more fun.
We are the Commanders.
To have meaningful football in December, where the meaning is not how high is the draft pick that we're going to see screwed up by another bad GM, versus how does this team put it all together for a couple of weekends in January and maybe surprise some people in the playoffs. And, where are they going to be seated in the playoffs? Like this is better. This is so much better. And I think the other exciting part is there's still so much room to grow. And you have to keep getting better, right? I think if you want to take something out of the Netflix games yesterday, Like, just because you get the quarterback right and the head coach right and the GM right, you can't get full of yourself. You have to know, like, hey, we came into this thing with a lot of space to grow. Don't get fat and happy, because I think Houston got a little fat and happy, and they got a little arrogant about some parts of their roster, and that has killed them this year. And so my Christmas wish, my holiday wish for the next year of Commanders football is that some of the things that they have been able to stick together with football versions of Scotch tape and Elmer's glue, the next year are built with solid steel, and that this team can take an even another step on a year where they're going to have a much, much tougher schedule, which is also part of Houston's problem. And they're going to have a tough schedule no matter where they finish, because their two divisions on their schedule next year are brutal. It's the NFC North and the AFC West. But they're also going to have a second-place schedule in general, and that is going to be a real challenge for them in 2025. Plenty to talk about still in 2024, and also lots of comments to respond to. It was an interesting comment week again, Anthony, as we prepare for Never Read the Comments. I'm actually going to start, well, we'll have some fun ones off the top, and there's some really funny ones to end with. So the bread on this week's comment sandwich, delightful. But I actually want to start with a TikTok of mine that went viral about something that the NFL did this week. We'll start there and then get into plenty of Commanders YouTube comments next. It's Never Read the Comments next on The Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. I don't need this winter coat over here. Get over there.
Little Red.
Yeah, I don't. It's just distracting in the background. Splashes of color. Deceitful of the eye. I don't know what I'm doing. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We're streaming live on YouTube, which is very relevant in just a moment. Also, you can follow us on a variety of social media platforms. You can get me on Instagram at Hoffman.sports, on TikTok at Craig Hoffman. I'm on Blue Sky at Craig Hoffman. I'm not really using the other text-based platform anymore because it sucks now, and there's nothing good that comes out of it. So that's where you can find us in all the places. But on YouTube specifically, you leave a lot of comments. Actually, on Instagram and TikTok, a lot of comments as well. And then we read them. Probably a little bit too much. It's not the best for us, but we do it anyway. Why, Anthony? For the sake of content. This is the content.
We tried to warn them. They didn't listen. Every week, the Hoffman Show goes into the belly of the beast.
We read those comments, baby.
Never read the comments.
Okay, so let's dive into it. We always start off Never Read the Comments with a fun little, we call it our amuse-bouche. It's just a little something to wet the palate. And last week, Anthony, you were actually out on Thursday. Vic was here, but we had DBJ2817 who left a comment. I responded and was like, what's this comment? He's like, hey, bro, I'm just trying to get on Never Read the Comments. And I was like, dang. And I read that exchange, and I was like, I don't know if this is good. I don't know if I should reward this behavior. Like, should I let this dude on the show for basically begging on the show? But I will say, at least he's a loyal YouTube viewer, Anthony, because he responded to last week's edition of Never Read the Comments when it got posted on YouTube and was like, yo, I made it. Love the show. So DBJ, congratulations.
We love to see it. We love to hear it.
Well, thanks for your loyal viewership and listenership and for commenting, even if you're just doing it to hear your own name called. You know what? We'll take it. We'll take the views however we can get them. All right. Speaking of views, I guess it was Tuesday? It was Monday, when the NFL announced that they were going to change this weekend's schedule, which is something they can only do in Week 17. Week 18 is a known, we don't announce any game times, right? That is a known thing. Weeks 1 through 16, or I guess it's really like 5 or whatever through 16, they need about 12 days notice to announce any kind of schedule flex. But for whatever reason, television money, they decide on week 17, we can do it with 6 days notice. And I think that's ridiculous. I think changing the game time that close to a game is bad for fans that are attending the game and is going to cause fans who had planned on going to have a ton of logistical issues. And so I made a TikTok about it, put it up, and it went pretty viral. Not like the craziest I've ever gotten, but it's got 50,000 views and counting on TikTok, which is no small number, but again, nothing terribly crazy. And the comments were really interesting to me. So I thought I would bring the rare TikTok into what is normally a YouTube-based segment on the radio. Do we have enough multimedia yet? The comments were kind of separated into 3 different categories. The first was the they can do whatever they want crowd, which you're the worst. Just because the NFL is, we acknowledge, a business that is trying to make money. Just because we know that they can do this, that yes, if you purchase a ticket late in the season, you know a game can get flexed, doesn't mean that they should actually be doing it. That doesn't mean that it's a good thing. My argument isn't that they did something illegal or that they did something that is against their own terms of service. What are you all, lawyers? No, my argument was that is abusing the consumer, and that's bad. Whose side are you on here? Half these same people are on the TikTok I made about the RFK site, talking about how these billionaires can pay for their own stadiums. How do you think they pay for their own stadiums? By getting the money, squeezing every last cent out of all of us. Whose side are you on? Are you on the side of the fan or the owner? Make up your minds. It's ridiculous. They don't need to make more money. The NFL will make billions without flexing games. It's fine. And especially, my argument is doing it on 6 days notice, the week of, on a holiday week nonetheless. That is screwing with people. So that the second group of people is not the they can do whatever they want. It's the nobody, because the game that got flexed, in case you don't know, is the Vikings and Packers game got flexed into 3:25 local time out of the 1 o'clock noon local window where they switched Cowboys-Eagles into. And there was another group of people that said, this isn't a big deal because I mentioned, Anthony, in the TikTok, that this could really mess with people's flights. If you're going to fly out after the game and you were going to have, say, a 6 o'clock flight, now all of a sudden that flight's at halftime. And so these geniuses go, nobody's flying between Minnesota and Green Bay. Do you realize how small your world has to be to think that every professional football fan lives in the city where the team is located? Especially when one of those teams is the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay, Wisconsin is a town of about 100,000 people. There are 500,000 stockholders in the Green Bay Packers. 5 times the amount of people that live in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So maybe, perhaps, fans of NFL teams live somewhere else. What is wrong with you people? You don't have to be loud and wrong on the internet. Stop doing that. And then the third group of people that commented, Anthony, were the people that were actually affected by this. Imagine that. You have people like the Dalai Mama. What a great screen name, TikTok name. She said, I'm flying in for the weekend from Dallas to see my sister and watch the game. My flight leaves at 6 p.m. Should have been plenty of time after the noon game. Super irritating. Henry Knapp. They should have given more notice when flexing games. Even without the traveling, people need to get sitters and such. Right. If you have kids and you were planning on having the babysitter for a certain amount of time so that you could go to the game and go back, even if you're a Vikings fan who lives in Minneapolis, you have to make sure that that babysitter can now still do the job. And then you had Reagan. Yep, had to give up my tickets to make my 5 p.m. flight. And the reason I wanted to point this out, and the reason I want to talk about this, is because there's actually like a bigger take to get actual serious for a second. And I think part of the reason that the internet can feel so terrible is because it highlights the ways that too many people think that the entire world experiences life exactly like they do. So you have all these yahoos that are like, who flies out the day of a game? When, like, by the way, when I was working on the beat, I used to do that for basically every game that wasn't a night game. I always flew out after games. And guess what? Those planes going from wherever the Commanders were playing back to D.C. were always full of Washington fans who had been at the game. So this is a very, very common thing for road fans to do. But people think that because they wouldn't do that, or they would have no problem doing that, staying an extra night. Oh, I'll pay for the extra night at a hotel, or I don't have to get back to my job on Monday. That is maybe an hourly job, and this game that I'm going to on a holiday weekend could have been the Christmas gift to myself that I saved up for as an NFL fan for the entire year, and now I can't even go. I have to try to sell my ticket so that I can get back to my job on Monday morning because it's an hourly job, and that's how I feed my family. And I was trying to do one nice thing for myself. So you have all these people, and I'm considering that this particular thing went viral and all these comments are from TikTok. I'm going to guess that a lot of these are young people, but surely not all of them, and like very young people who don't have families and think that everyone can just move their life around, commenting on this video like that there's no real problems with this for anybody that could possibly have come up. Parents who have kids at home and less flexibility at their jobs, and that they were just trying to do the one nice thing for themselves. And I think that's just sad. And I know this is typically a fun and lighthearted segment, and there's a lot of football stuff, and we'll talk about the Commander side of it and football stuff in a second. But, like, and most people who hear that it's about them, they're just going to be like, shut up, old man, which is fun because most of the time I get called stupid and young, not stupid and old, or that I'm soft, or it's an L take. I got that a lot. L take. Like, human beings actually talk like that. Wow, I just did sound like I'm 100 years old. Maybe I am old. But hopefully there's also people listening that are like, wow, I never thought about that. Because there were some of those. I'd respond to some of these comments and say, what about if you need childcare? What happens if you have to get back because you can't, that extra night of hotel, like, That's a lot on your budget. You're already giving up a lot to try to have this really great experience. And people were like, oh, I never thought of that. So I also hope that there are people listening who go, wow, I never thought of that. And that maybe the next time the NFL tries to rake us all over the coals for money, that more people go, hey, that ain't cool. You're making enough. You're making like $10 billion a year. We'd like to enjoy the product. It doesn't all have to be corporate sponsorship. But I don't think that's how people operate, Anthony. They just think about it for themselves and like, well, it's a cooler game for me to watch on TV. Sure, I guess.
Yeah, I hate that we have, people that think like that, but I'm really one of those people that flies places for games and then will fly out 2 hours afterwards. So
it's plenty of time unless the NFL or whatever entity moves the game time. And again, I'm not saying they can't do it. I'm saying 6 days before is ridiculous. Frankly, so is 12. But like, there's got to be a better solution here.
Yeah.
Like, why can't they just not announce game times? Like, that's the thing for this game. Of course, and people are like, oh, this game, you had to know it was subject to flex. They're all subject to flex. So are people just not supposed to buy tickets? Like, what are we doing? Like, in fact, ironically, the only people that can protect this from happening are other networks. And in this particular case, Fox just flipped the games. Like, Fox and the NFL flipped the game. Because if the game had to go from Fox to CBS, Fox could have been like, no, we're not losing this game. So, like, that's how some games don't get flexed into Sunday night because it'd have to flip to NBC. But they've given the networks all the power, which for most fans consuming the product is fine because you're watching it at home on television. And I understand that this is a minority level concern here. But, like, these are the most dedicated. The reason it's fun to watch on TV is because the crowd's going crazy. Shouldn't we take care of the crowd?
We should. Put the people first, man.
That's what I'm saying. Put the people first. All right. That's enough of that. I've gone on my society's level via football rant for the day. Back to the Commanders in the comments section. Comments on our Take Command film review of Jayden Daniels. And, of course, this was from Take Command with me and Logan. And we talked about how Jayden had a different kind of game than he did the first time, or 2 weeks ago against the Saints, right? 2 weeks ago against the Saints, this great, like, technical, proficient game. He's making reads. He's, being really quick. And then against the Eagles, like, it's a very different kind of great game. Like, there's some stuff that he misses, some easy throws where he's reading it right, but bad throw. Or he misses this read. Should have checked the ball down here. But then he makes these huge, just game-saving, game-winning, explosive plays that salvage any inefficiency that he had. And that the fact that he actually is good, or the fact that he actually was able to produce like that is a good sign, because even when he doesn't have the down-in, down-out proficiency, he finds a way to win. Overall, I think it was a pretty positive review. Yet, because we didn't say the exact thing that someone wanted to hear, we get comments like this from Darren Cox 9253. Stop it. The kid had a great game. Look at all the film you want, and you can't change that. It seemed like you just want to be the smartest guy in the room, but if you are that smart, wouldn't you be a coach instead of a reporter? I get it. Everybody have their opinion, and this is a podcast, and that is what y'all do, but there's no way you're going to make me think that the game was anything else but a great performance. My question to Darren would be, then why the hell are you listening? Like, what's the point of listening to people who study and get paid to study? And like, Logan could be an NFL coach. He doesn't want the lifestyle for his family. If I wanted to go be a quality control coach, like intern somewhere, I doubt it, but like, it's not unheard of. Like, there's people that went from working for like PFF to working on NFL coaching staffs. I know how much I don't know, but like, I think this is more directed at Logan. Like, all the film is a different view of what happened than you saw on TV. And it lets us see more detail. Like, and no one said he played poorly. I don't get the point of that, Anthony. I don't know that you have the answer either, but I'm putting it out there for that when we put this on YouTube next, right? When we put this segment up, people leave comments and tell me what the point is. If you just want to be told, like, if you already have your opinion, what's the point of listening to anybody else's opinion?
Sometimes, people want to hear themselves.
I guess. They just want to be confirmed at all times.
Yeah.
Podcast. Darren, there's an app in your iPhone called Voice Memo. It looks like this. Okay? That's what it looks like. As you're recording, and you can see at the bottom, I'm recording right now, and so it's picking up the waveform. And then, if you hit stop, and then you hit play, that's what it looks like. As you're recording, and you can see at the bottom, I'm recording right now, and so it's picking up the waveform. And then you can hear yourself talk. Just start your own podcast, bro. That's what I'm saying. That wasn't very Christmas spirit of me. I don't know why that one got under my skin. Just annoys me. At high speed 30, it's impressive regardless as we get back to the Jaden of it all, who, by the way, again, was spectacular, just in a different way on Sunday against the Eagles. It's impressive that Jaden has shown that he can will this team to victories in multiple ways. The run game has been non-existent for the last 2 games. If he has to drop back 40 times, he can beat you. But the identity of this team has been the running game with explosive plays from JD5. And that's where I think this team is at its best. I think this team is at its best when it can run the football, play action off of that, hit big chunks, create air in the defense because the linebackers have to cheat up. And I think getting the running game back is really critical. I think there's a huge opportunity to do that against Atlanta. The Saints, they were pretty bad against the run, one of the worst in the league, and the Commanders should have had a better time. But I understand why running the ball against them is hard. They have huge edge players that are super physical, and they hit hard. Getting on the edge, getting on the perimeter, and some of the stuff that the Commanders have been good at running the football is really hard to run against the way that New Orleans plays and the personnel that they have. They probably should have leaned into some other types of runs that have been successful for other teams, but that's not who they were. They figured it out enough to win. Cool. Survived the clock malfunction, whatever at the end, yada, yada. Against the Eagles, they're just hard to do anything against because they're the number 1 team in football against everything, right? They're the best defense in the entire league. So, of course, it was hard to run against them. And Jalen Carter is a monster, and some of the bear fights between he and Sam Cosmi were just oh my God, that was violent. And if you can play him at least to a standstill, that's a win. But they found other ways, and they ran the ball effectively enough to hit some play action shots and to keep the defense honest enough to hit the explosive that you need down the field. Atlanta, let's just say their hitting doesn't jump off the tape. And I'm not saying that they're a soft team or anything. Drake London, super physical on the offensive side. But defensively, they are undersized across their entire front. You can push them around. They have some guys that can kind of penetrate and cause problems, but not at an elite level. So some of that has been problematic for Washington. For instance, the Saints, inside, they've got good penetrators. And if you can stop that, then you're good. And the Commanders didn't do a great job of it, but they also have the hard outside edge. Atlanta's got neither penetrators or hard outside edge players. They're just undersized across the front, which is why their pass rush is bad, the run defense is mediocre, and the Commanders should be able to fire off the ball and get going. And then you can cause their linebackers, who are decently good players, to be kind of sucked up into the run, hit your crossers, hit all that stuff in the second level where there is a ton of air and a ton of space in that defense. So I'm excited to see if the Commanders can get some confidence back in the run game before they face Dallas and try that again in Week 18. Also on this front, this is a question from Taylor to Logan, but I'm going to give my best shot at it. Sorry, Taylor. Maybe I'll ask Logan about this on a future Take Command episode. I wonder how comfortable Jaden is under center at this point in the development. They say it takes some time for young guys now where the college game is going. Being under center would help B-Rob hit the hole harder and help the lack of talent on the outside struggling to get open separation off of play action. Would like to see a little bit more of that mixed with the shotgun pistol read option and RPO. Our run game is starting to feel a little stale. I don't think I've seen Jaden on a play action boot once this year. Shanahan did a good job in 2012 of getting different looks to get the ground game established. The reason I wanted to bring this up and read this comment is in doing my prep for Take Command this morning in our Atlanta preview, which is out now, I actually came across a pretty remarkable stat, which is that Jaden Daniels has only thrown 14 passes this year from under center, and all 14 of them are play action. So you're almost correct in that he's thrown basically nothing from under center. He's thrown 0 drop back from under center passes this year. So when they get under center, they're either running it or play action boot. Here's the thing. I think 4 or 5 of those that I can think of off the top of my head are 4th and 1, and he makes a play. So I do think it's a good idea to maybe implement this a little bit more in the offense. The problem is if that's all you can do from there, now your playbook is significantly short, and you're not going to run the same things over and over again. Versus if you're in shotgun or you're in pistol, then your entire playbook is open. And unlike a lot of teams where shotgun is really limiting for the run game, because 90% of the time or so in shotgun, if the back is to the right, the run is going to go to the left. One, because Jaden is a read option threat, there's also a run threat to the right. Also, they run counter quite a bit where the handoff is to the same side that the back is lined up. So, is the run game getting a little stale? Maybe a little bit, but I think it's really an execution thing. They just need to execute better. Maybe if they had a little more variety, teams would be a little more off balance. But I think we'll see where things stand this Sunday because the Falcons' run defense is, let's call it limited in their success so far this season. All right, last but not least, our desserts for the week, Anthony. Are you ready for comments about us?
I think so.
You should be excited because people are in love with you this week.
Oh, man.
As for me, this one from Stephen Nick 7522. Hoffman is a joke. To which Stephen 4069 says, or 469 says, what a well thought out statement. Very informative. We got some Stephen on Stephen crime, Anthony.
I'm confused. Why are we doing that in the comment section, man?
I appreciate Stephen 469 for making fun of Stephen Nick 7522 for trying to make fun of me.
Yeah.
And also, by the way, Hoffman is a joke. I just realized it says Hoffman is a joke, not Hoffman is a joke.
That's bad. That's bad grammar right there.
Why are the worst people on the internet also just, let's just say perhaps the intelligence of the comment and the proficiency with which it's written is often a correlated figure. They say that well enough? You think people get what I mean?
I think so.
I think the people that write the comments probably don't, and I'm okay with that. As for you, Anthony, we talked about how you have not only broken the curse of Anthony Haney, you have reversed it. That you have been at 2 Commanders games this year, and there have been 2 miracle victories, the Bears game and the Eagles game. And when that was pointed out, the people have demands. Guitar Gangster 23, we need you at every game.
Every game is crazy.
Mr. K Hall 2002, appreciate your contribution to those 2 wins, Anthony. True team sport, baby.
I try to be.
There's like 5 or 6 others, and that
crazy.
reel has only been up for like 2 hours.
I'm flattered.
So, Anthony, people are excited that you're going to Sunday Night Football.
I will say this though.
Yep.
Actually, I don't want to put it in the air. I'll wait for the result on Sunday.
Okay. We'll revisit next Thursday. And last but not least, I guess whatever outfits we were wearing during the Take Command Instant Reaction show, Tony Robinson was looking at me and Logan and said, hey, Craig, you and Logan look like Russian mobsters today. I'm afraid to watch this, Vladimir.
Yo, that's...
Hey, Tony.
That's crazy.
Do not worry about anything.
Do not worry.
What country are you from?
Not Russia. I don't know, Craig.
The Big Six is next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube as well at the Team 980. 6 o'clock each and every day, we try to give you the Commanders' top storylines. On Thursdays, those storylines are highlighted and illuminated by the two coordinators, Joe Jr. and Cliff Kingsbury, speaking out in Ashburn. Even though the Commanders are on a little bit different schedule this week, they're now kind of back on track. And so their Thursday was indeed that usual Thursday, and thus time to hear from Cliff Kingsbury, then Joe Witt, 10 minutes from right now.
The 6 biggest Commander storylines.
It is caught!
Delivered at 6 o'clock sharp. It's the Pick 6 at 6.
We set out to find a leader, someone who could take this franchise to the next level and build an elite team that consistently competes for championships.
Let's get started with Cliff Kingsbury, and before we look ahead, let's look back one more time, because why wouldn't we, at the game-winning touchdown drive, and specifically the game-winning play.
Number 1.
Against the Philadelphia Eagles. Was that play always intended for Jamison Crowder? I think we've heard throughout the week that there's a version that goes to Zach Ertz, but Cliff was asked directly about that play and the fact that it wound up in JC's hands.
Was not. That was a Dave Blau play that he brought with him, and Jamison really sets it high, and Zach comes underneath, and Zach's the main target. But Friday practice, we repped that, and he hit Jamison like a one-handed diving catch, and I was like, never seen that before. And then we hit in the game, so it was like some universe shit. And then the second play, this is a true story, the second play, we ended practice with a safe 2-point conversion, and at the time I'm like, who does a safe 2-point conversion? Let's just throw it, whatever. But it's a run play. You're up 1. Hopefully they don't pick it off and run it back. And so that situation came up exactly like it did on Friday. So shout out DQ, and then Dave Gardy, our situational guy, manifested it.
That is some really fantastic stuff. And I actually was wondering, Anthony, as I was sitting in the press box on Sunday and they were lining up for the 2, I actually don't know, like, obviously running it in and I guess preventing being down, because they were up 1. You can either kick the extra point and be up 2, which is pointless, or you can go up 3 if you get the 2-point conversion, which feels safer because then a field goal only ties it. But there were 6 seconds left. I kind of feel like the correct play there, just to prevent the worst case scenario of we fumble, something stupid happens, they return it 2-point the other way, just take a knee. But safe 2-point conversion the way they did it, like, I'm fine with that. And it probably, I don't know what the number difference. It's probably your win probability is 99% either way. But especially if you know we're not going to kick it through the end zone and we're going to kick off, I kind of feel like at that point, you're either going to give up a kickoff return touchdown or win the game.
I mean, or, you do you remember when Sean Taylor and Troy Vincent blocked the field goal?
Yeah, you're definitely not kicking it.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, on the kick return, say we get a face mask and they return it to like the 40-yard line, they get 15 yards, they get the kick. Now it's untimed
down.
Exactly.
Okay, I think you've convinced me. Okay, correct. They did the right. I mean, hey, look, McNichols scored it. There was no fumbles, no big deal. Yeah. So clearly it was the right thing. But I did have that thought. I was like, what do you do here? Do you take a knee? And I guess that's probably the correct answer, just to prevent untimed down. I feel like that is more likely than fumbling on a, hey, McNichols, we're going to hand you the ball. Even in a day where you had 5 turnovers, we're going to hand you the ball. You're going to 2-hand carry that son of a gun all the way into the end, or as far as you go. And if you don't get in, that's fine. But please just run as hard as you can with the ball like this.
High and tight, baby.
Forget high. I don't want high and tight here. I want high and tight. 2 hands. I want you to be doing like an ab crunch over the football as you run in. And that's exactly what McNichols did, and they blocked it up really well and got in. By the way, Cliff there mentions David Blau, the assistant quarterbacks coach for the Commanders. And so what has he brought besides a couple of fun plays that might help you win football games to that quarterback room?
Yeah, he's been phenomenal. He's one of the smartest quarterbacks I've ever been around. I just had him a little bit in Arizona, and he picked up the offense in like 5 days, and we had him starting a couple of days later, and executed at a really high level. And I was just his kind of steady habits, how he interacted with other players, how he communicated with the coaches. I always thought, like, this guy would be a phenomenal coach, and his experience with the young quarterbacks, being so young and so recently a part of the game, I think that carries a lot of weight with those guys. Like, he can share his experiences, a guy who maximized everything he was to get where he's at, and it hits home. And so he's been a great voice in that room. And then for me, some of the blind spots I have or Tavita has, having just come out of that role as a backup or having started games, it just carries a lot of weight when he speaks.
I would highly recommend for anybody who is just maybe you have a little extra time because you're not working or you're not working hard this week. The Arizona Cardinals season of Hard Knocks, where Cliff was the head coach, is the season where Blau comes in. And so it's actually a really kind of cool story because Blau also, I believe that was the season that the Lions were on Hard Knocks, and Blau was a part of the Lions in the preseason. Then he winds up leaving and joining the Cardinals. But if you want more, if you want to know more about Cliff, I thought that was a really cool thing. He's learned a lot since then, but it was a very, very cool insight in the in-season Hard Knocks of Cliff and kind of how he thinks, how he operates. But also they tell the David Blau story in there. So if you want something to watch, go back and watch 2021 Arizona Cardinals, I think it was, Hard Knocks. As for the here and the now,
Number 2.
The run game. Got to get going against the Atlanta Falcons. Cliff, how do you get that done?
So they played at a much higher level recently, and there's no doubt they're doing a great job against the run. But this week's about us and getting better in that department.
Okay, that wasn't nearly as insightful as we were hoping. Perhaps, Cliff Kingsbury, can we get a little more detail on the parts of the run game that need to be cleaned up?
Yeah, I think just a little bit too much paralysis by overanalysis. If you're going to make a mistake, we got to make it full speed. The picture is going to change. Defense is going to do different things, show different fronts. But I feel like there's some hesitation. We've got a bunch of smart guys up there that have done a great job sorting things out. But I feel like we're not just firing. We're kind of waiting at this point. And it's like, hey, we're going to cut it loose, play downhill. If we make a mistake, we'll go full speed and let the backs play off of it.
I love hearing the same thing from Cliff on a Thursday that we hear from Dan earlier in the week, in this case on Tuesday when they spoke on Christmas Eve. It very much seems like that is the focus. And then I'm sure on Sunday, if they have a big day in the running game, we will hear about, hey, they just told us to stop thinking so much and fire off the ball. And sure enough, that's what you will see, I think, successfully, because the last time they were talking like this was the Tennessee game, and they ran for 250 yards. So Atlanta, watch out. Can this team win consistently without running the ball? Cliff Kingsbury, your thoughts on that?
If number 5 is healthy, yes. In this league, you're going to have to run it at some point, particularly going to the NFC. You look at some of the teams, some places you may have to play. But, yeah.
It's a bold take. Hey, if 5 is healthy, puts a lot on the quarterback. So let's talk a little bit more.
Number 3.
About number 5. Cliff talking about Jaden and the trust factor he has in rookie. Think about that statement you just heard him make. Think about the fact that he's like, hey, can you win without running the ball? Sure, if we got our quarterback. Okay, is your quarterback Joe Burrow or Pat Mahomes? No, he's a rookie. He's about to start his 16th ever football game in the NFL. Oh, okay. Just like that, huh? Just like that. What made Cliff so comfortable giving Jaden Daniels the keys to the offense?
Yeah, just early on. When he said something and he had information, it was spot on. He nailed it, and he saw coverages and he saw releases and he saw, hey, we got this guy because of this. And so it didn't take many plays into rookie minicamp. I was like, all right, this guy, he's going to be up here as far as recognizing what he's seeing and being able to communicate like that. And that's huge for coaches to be able to coach off that and be able to help through that, because there are guys who will come up with the reasons why this wasn't over, I thought this, and he just will say it as it is, and he's the first one to say my bad if he screws something up too. So that gains a lot of trust with the coaching staff.
That relationship is so enormous, and it allows you to know, hey, these are the things that we are setting him up for, and he's messing up, but he knows and he's going to fix, or hey, maybe we need to reconsider some of what we're doing. And Cliff actually talked about that. What are the things at this point with the offense that you're improving versus, hey, we need to add a new wrinkle here. We need to find a different way to do this thing.
Yeah, I think with him right now, it's just making sure we don't get bored with doing the proper footwork and the correct read and taking the right check down, which I thought he did a tremendous job avoiding sacks, getting the ball out of his hand, throwing it away last week. Don't get bored with making the routine play. He can do the Superman stuff when it's called for, and he does, but I think that's the biggest deal. Stay within yourself, stay within the system, and when it's time to make those plays, you're going to make those plays. So he did a nice job last week, and we just got to stay right there with it.
And I think overall, Jaden Daniels has done a pretty excellent job of being consistent this year. One last bite from Cliff Kingsbury on that consistency from a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, I think his belief in himself and his ability just in those moments to just really lock in and focus. And he's as good as I've ever been around as far as just playing the next play. Like he doesn't let much phase him. He knows the work he's put in during the week, and he focuses on that. And so it's like the result is what it is, and he can process it and move forward. And for a young guy to be able to handle that with all he has going on has been really impressive.
Cliff Kingsbury talking about Jaden, talking about the run game, talking about the game-winning play against the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, next up, the Atlanta Falcons. When we get back, the back half of our Pick Six, you'll hear from Joe Witt Jr. on Frankie Louvu's impact and more. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. But first, let's get an update on the latest in the world of women's sports presented by Wawa. Chicken how you want it at Wawa with customizable, crispy, or roasted chicken sandwiches. It's the Hoffman Show leading you into Wizards basketball tonight here on the Team 980. Wizards and Hornets coming up at 6:45. Pregame coverage begins with Dave Johnson and friends. Dave joined us a little bit earlier on in the show, so if you want a little Wizards preview, you can rewind to 4:45 p.m. in the Odyssey app. We have Mike Tirico at 5. Great conversation with him. That one will also go, as every part of the show does, in our podcast feed. Just search the Hoffman Show in your favorite podcast app. Right now, we continue with our Pick 6 at 6, where we give you some of the biggest storylines of the day for the Commanders. And now it's time to hear from Commanders defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr.
Number 4.
Joe started his press conference today talking about preparing for the opponent Sunday night, the Atlanta Falcons. A very interesting team to have right now because they just switched quarterbacks from Kirk Cousins to Michael Penix. So what does this Falcons offense do well?
Well, I think from the pass game standpoint, they make the reads similar. They're balanced for the quarterback, and so the progression, if it's left to right, or if it's away from the back or to the back, is very easy for the quarterback to get through his progressions. In the run game, they do a good job of getting the ball on the edge. I mean, they have really good blockers. They really get to the second level quickly, and they're able to get the runner onto the second level.
Bijan is one of the few backs in the NFL who can compete in explosiveness with Saquon Barkley. Their ability to get him out on the edge and then let him make one cut and be gone is special. And the other thing about Bijan that's really, really special is his missed tackle rate is higher than anyone else in the league, or at least the total number of missed tackles. He's got 99. How good is that? I have no context. Craig, 99 missed tackles. That sounds like a lot, but it's because it's close to 100, and that's a big number. How about that is the fourth most of any running back since 2018 in any single season through their first 16 games. So he is having a ridiculous season in terms of making the most out of every single run. So, yeah, stopping him is pretty important. Now, Joe mentioned they do a good job with their pass concepts as well. Zach Robinson, the first-year play caller. Joe is a first-year play caller as well. Is there any difference in preparing for a fellow first-year play caller?
Yeah, it's from the standpoint that, you have a book on guys that you've seen, years prior. With a guy that's his first year, okay, you look at what he's done. Now, we're towards the end of the season, so it's a little bit easier. But you look at, okay, what did he do at the place before? And his history, and then who was he really under for the majority of his time. You try to go back in the past and see what he's done in the past.
So the play caller, Zach Robinson, comes out of the Sean McVay tree, and there's definitely some elements of that. They've also done a really good job of taking what Atlanta did in the past under Arthur Smith and keeping some of that because their personnel is built that way. They are excellent as an outside zone running team, which is what they were primarily under Arthur Smith. And even though McVay and a lot of the other coaches on that tree have gone to different ways of running the football, Atlanta's really stuck to that. And now, because they have a more mobile quarterback in Penix than what they had this version of Kirk Cousins, they can hit a lot of the play action shots off of that, even if they were a lot of the underneath stuff off of that last week against the Giants, compared to some of the bigger shots that will certainly come against other opponents, hopefully not the Commanders, on Sunday in Penix's future. Last but not least, is there an adjustment at all, not just going quarterback to quarterback, but it's one of these like little nuanced things, but you're going against a lefty this week. Michael Penix, obviously the blind side is different, where maybe he's stronger coming out of certain rollouts. Things like that are different. Is there an adjustment, Joe Witt Jr., going against a lefty quarterback in Michael Penix?
Yeah, that's a good question. Some things we might do in reverse because of the progression of how they read it. But, for the most part, we always do a hit chart of where the ball goes, and sometimes there's a right-hand quarterback that might throw it better to the left. That's rare, but there's sometimes that happens. And so we see the hit chart, and if we want to tilt the coverage one way or another, that affects. I give you an example. We were playing when Michael Vick came back a long time ago. That game started with a right-hand quarterback, and he came in. He was at Philly, and I had Sam Shields on the opposite side of the quarterback's throwing hand. So when Vic came in, I still had Sam to the right side, and he was a rookie that year, and he gave up a touchdown. Well, I should have flipped him once he got in and put Tremont on that side over there, which I didn't, but then it hit me like, okay, he's to the quarterback's throwing arm. So that's a very good point.
Anthony, I love that so much. Coaches are psychos. They remember every more than any good thing that happened to them. Unless you're Sean McVay, and then you remember everything. But coaches remember every bad thing that happened to them. Like, I just imagine Joe going, wow, I didn't expect that. That was a good question. And as his brain starts to go, there's just this, 5-alarm fire going off, like, Vic's a lefty, switch the corner. Vic's a lefty, switch the corner. Because he didn't do it one time in 2000 whatever.
I mean, Joe Witt just strikes me as that person that, he's the type to, really hold a grip. He still might be mad at LaFleur for what he did to the Cowboys last playoffs.
I mean, I'm sure he is. But also just, the little things like that. Like, oh, yeah, what about this route? How do you cover? Oh, I remember in 2006 when I'm trying to remember of a receiver who was big in 2006. Was Terrell
Bolden, maybe?
What? Anquan Bolden. Was Terrell Owens still playing?
They busted onto the scene.
Yeah, Terrell Owens was still playing in 2006. When Terrell Owens ran this against us, or Randy Moss ran this against us this way against this coverage, and I was like, I'm never letting that happen again. Coaches are nuts, and I think that's a great story from Joe about thinking about some of those details. And I think it's a good insight, too, because some quarterbacks, and we talked about this with Jaden a little bit earlier in the year, where he is seemingly more comfortable throwing to his right, which was a problem when Terry McLaurin was always lined up on the left. And it wasn't so much that Terry being lined up on the left on its own was this huge problem. But if you have a mismatch of where the quarterback is most comfortable and getting your best receiver in those spots, that is a problem we've seen as the season has gone on for a variety of reasons, but mainly because they just needed to have a more dynamic, less static offense. They're moving Terry around a lot more, and especially to that right side of the field. Continuing on with Joe Witt Jr.
Number 5.
We all know Frankie Louvu's had an enormous contribution to this defense, but directly Joe Witt, how would you describe number 4's contributions to this unit?
Well, first, he's, like I've said from day one, he's the type of player that we wanted to build this defense around. He's a run and hit, high energy man. He's everything that this defense really wants to be about. Frankie is a great teammate. All right, he's a leader. He doesn't say a whole bunch of, he doesn't say anything. He just runs and plays with great emotion and does whatever we ask him to do. He's right there. Bobby's so even keeled, and then you have Frankie that just is ready to run through the wall. So he's just what we stand for.
I think it's such a great pairing because Bobby is a guy that will speak up in the locker room maybe a little bit more. And I don't know that Bobby's like, hey, let's get the whole team together, rah, rah. He will do that if it's needed. And he obviously earlier this season spoke to the team before one of the games, in a meeting room style. So he's not afraid to do any of that stuff from a vocal standpoint, but he's also a guy that I think goes around the locker room and has relationships with a lot of different guys and talks to a lot of different guys, where Louvu's the much more silent type. Then on the field, Bobby arrives with physicality and violence, but the loud player between the two of them is certainly Frankie Louvu. And so you have this great yin and yang pairing of not only personalities, but play styles that has been really great for the Commanders more often than not this season. Are they perfect? No. Playing linebacker in the NFL is hard as hell. And there are, 5 guys in the last decade of the league that are great two-way linebackers. And Wagner at one point was one of those guys. Fred Warner, Roquan Smith, those types of guys are rare. But if you can do most of what a linebacker needs to do in the league and do the other stuff at a passable level and do one thing exceptionally well, you can be a star at that spot. And that's certainly what Frankie Louvu has been this season for Washington. Last but not least,
number 6.
John Allen could be back this week for the Commanders. What's that mean for Joe Witt and how will you use him? Defensive coordinator was asked today. You're only going to get so much in this answer, though.
Oh, I'm excited. With the opportunity of getting him back, hopefully that happens when he gets back in. I'm sure he'll be on the pitch count, but I don't know what that number will be. I'll let the medical staff and AP and DQ, lead that way. But he gives us just another veteran player, high pedigree player that can go in and give those quality snaps inside, that can get after the quarterback, push the pocket, be disruptive. So we're excited to get him back.
I think the defense has, by and large, been better since Jonathan Allen was out for the Commanders. However, that wasn't just because Jonathan Allen was screwing it all up and now everything's fixed. This defense has grown since he has been out, since the time has elapsed since John was out. So the question is, when he gets back, can he pick up where they are now, or is he still where they left off? Because if he's still where they left off, that's going to be a problem. And that would be true for any player coming back to the defense, not just John, who's been here for a while and everything that it means to be John Allen for the Commanders. But if he can say, like, oh, yeah, I've been in these meetings. I've been paying attention the whole year. I've been at practice. I've been observing and now participating in practice the last week. And I understand where we are and the things that we've changed. Then, yeah, John Allen's going to be a great addition to this defense in December. And we'll see how he plays if he does suit up on Sunday. We'll find out tomorrow, and we'll let you know here on The Hoffman Show. When we get back, we wrap things up on the Team 980 with real things real people said in a real microphone. It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Great show today. We had Mike Tirico on at 5 o'clock. That was good chat. Dan Pizzuta was great at 4:30. Never read the comments. I feel like I was a little spicy today. Never read the comments.
I think it was okay energy.
I mean, it's just You know, when it's the Christmas holiday season and everyone's in a nice spirit, and then I'm getting a little feisty. I'm like, this is more like mid-October energy, you know? That's my only thing. Maybe some January energy, just some like it's cold, everyone's miserable. Just I don't know.
There's really like February energy.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It is what it. People leave their comments, and I react to them. That's the segment. That's what we do. Anthony, we did not pick the games yesterday, which stinks because I would have gotten them both right.
Oh, we didn't pick the games? You serious?
Mm-hmm.
Dang.
I have proof that I would have gotten them both right because when we picked on the First Impression Selection show on Monday on YouTube with me and Tony Squares, I picked both the teams that won to cover as favorites. So, would you have gotten them both right?
Yeah, no question. I was definitely going. I think I picked the Ravens. I'm pretty sure they were 6.5 on Competition Wednesday.
Yeah, I think that's right. And you would have picked the Chiefs.
The Chiefs. I think we were considering doing the Chiefs game for the tiebreaker.
So we have evidence.
Both were on the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think that's correct. I think we just count 2-0 on our records.
I like the way you think, sir.
All right. And then we need to pick Thursday Night Football because there's more football tonight. Seahawks and Bears. Is this a 1-2-3 game?
I don't know if it's necessarily 1-2-3. The thing is about the Bears, like they'll get down 21-0.
They love being down 21-0, bro.
Here they come. Here they come.
Yeah, that is the problem.
What do they start? It's Thursday, Craig. It is Thursday.
It is. This line started at 3.5. It's now up to Seattle -4.5. I was in one of our breaks. One of our betting experts from the BetQL network was saying, like, the only side here is Chicago. The Seahawks don't deserve to be 4. I'm like, have you watched the Bears? The Bears are booty, man. They're so bad. But like the Seahawks are the most untrustworthy team in the league. But I think part of the reason they're frustrating at times is because they've been like frustrating at home, and it's like, they can't even win a home game. But they're 5-1 on the road. I'm taking Seattle, especially since we don't have to worry about the line.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Seattle too. I just think they really want to get into the playoffs. You got to go out here. You got to handle your business. Take down the Bears tonight. You lose to the Bears, embarrassing.
Yeah, you don't deserve to make the playoffs at that point. As for where the playoffs stand right now, the Chiefs clinched the 1 seed yesterday with their win. The Chiefs are, by the way, we didn't talk a ton about the games off the start today. The Chiefs look, all of a sudden, really good. Like, they have no business being 15-1 at the level they played for a lot of the season. But now, they are a bona fide favorite in the AFC, along with, like, I'm not saying they're head and shoulders above everyone else, but, like, they are legit. Like, we kind of put them in prime contenders because we're like, I don't know, they just keep winning. What do you want us to do? Like, they are legit, bro. Like, their offense is starting to come together because they got Hollywood back. DeAndre Hopkins has been integrated. Xavier Worthy's just getting more experience and getting better, and he's scoring a touchdown or two every single week. They're figuring out the run game. Pat's still Pat. Kelsey's still open somehow, and then winding up eating a cake football after the game. Like, they're the Chiefs, and like defensively, they were really great yesterday as well, despite the fact that Chris Jones didn't even play.
It's scary, bro.
So
It's scary. And the thing is, it's probably as much crap as we gave the Chiefs for, being barely winning these games early in the season. They're low-key clicking. Kelsey's coming on.
Right.
He's had 2 good back-to-back weeks. Mahomes looks solid. The defense seems to be getting things together. They shut down that Pittsburgh offense with George Pickens in the lineup. I don't know, man. It's looking like Chiefs, Ravens, AFC title game rematch. But
Bills are going to have something to say about that. Bills definitely going to have something to say about that.
My bad. Bills too.
The Bills, by the way, who have clinched the AFC East, they're in the 2 seed right now with a 1-game lead over Baltimore going into the weekend. I think they can clinch the 2 seed. Yeah, they can clinch the 2 seed with a win. Ravens in the 3 seed ahead of the Steelers. They have the lead, obviously, on record. They don't even need a tiebreaker right now going into the final game of the regular season. Houston is locked up as the AFC South winner, so they're going to be the 4 seed. And then they're probably going to get dump trucked in the playoffs. Steelers at the 5, Chargers currently sitting 6, Broncos 7. The Colts, Dolphins, and Bengals are all still alive. In the NFC, the Lions have a 1-game lead over the Eagles. Lions have a 1-game lead over the Eagles for the 1 seed. They are tied with the Vikings, but hold the tiebreaker thanks to the head-to-head record, as the Lions have beaten the Vikings this season. Have they beaten the Vikings twice this season? Is that Minnesota's only 2 losses? No, they play again in Week 18. Minnesota lost back-to-back to the Lions and the Rams. They lost to the Lions by 2, and then they lost to the Rams. I think that was a Thursday nighter. They have the Packers this Sunday and then the Lions. Minnesota is still very much alive for the 1 seed.
For sure.
Rams currently sitting in the 3 seed. Falcons in the 4 seed. Falcons hold the tiebreaker over Tampa because they beat them twice. Minnesota at the 5, Green Bay at the 6. If they wind up losing and the Commanders win out, Commanders could leapfrog them for the 6. And then, obviously, Washington has a 2-game lead over Tampa and Seattle for the final playoff spot. So, really, Seattle's best bet is that they win. They get a Rams loss. And then Week 18, they would be playing for the NFC West crown. So, they have to win this game tonight. On the basketball court tonight, Wizards and the Hornets. Bilal Coulibaly is in, as is Alex Sarr. So your starters tonight for the Wizards: Jordan Poole, Bub Carrington, Bilal, Justin Champagny, and Alex Sarr. So return to the lineup for the 2 Frenchmen, the first-round picks of the last 2 season for Washington tonight. That'll be our show for today. We'll get some real things to send you out tomorrow. But yeah, we'll see you then. Football Friday tomorrow on the Team 980. Enjoy the Zardos.